Did you know that DC has some fascinating mural art? Let's learn about DC's own mural master.
I was born here in Washington, D.C. My parents finished their education. We moved back to Nigeria. There was a lot of cultural exchange from us learning the language there and transforming from American kids to Nigerian kids. When I was a child, my mom bought us coloring books. And that was my first introduction to art in general. The one thing that really captured my attention was comic books. For example, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, the Fantastic Four. They use a lot of, I think, primary colors and reds, blues, yellows. So this really captured my attention, and it still has a heavy influence in my work today. Once the hip-hop explosion happened in the 90s, I started noticing a lot of album covers being drawn like comic book covers, so it kind of took me back. And this is the beginning stage of what influenced what has now become even all the way down to me doing murals now. I can take hip-hop and incorporate it with African culture, and I actually take lines, these really interesting lines that rhyme, and I create a visual that is somewhat related, but at the same time disconnected from the lyrics. For example, Rakim, from Eric B. and Rakim, and there's one particular line where he says, "I kick a hole in the speaker, pull a plug, and I jet." So I have this image of, I combined Bruce Lee and King Kong and jet into it. The visual is more that illustrative style. It tells the story, but if you don't know, if you've never heard that line before, it just looks like this regular illustration, but then when you take the line and add it to the visual, then it all makes sense, and so that's the hip-hop influence. And there's always some sort of hip-hop influence in a lot of the stuff I do. The turning point for me was when I found out, like, wow, just one project paid me enough, and it actually paid me more than the 3 jobs I had at the time. So I thought then, like, maybe I should take this a little bit more seriously. The pencil is a central theme in my work now because I see the pencil as the concept of life, It's, you see people, they have it in their ear, and some people write with it. It's a very powerful tool because if you make mistakes, you flip it around and erase the mistakes. But the interesting thing that I found out about pencils is if you make a mistake and you erase the mistake is gone, but the scar is there. The confidence you get with using this pencil, knowing I'm gonna make mistakes, but I can always erase this little mistake and fix it. So I came up with a series called Reloaded, meaning in life, there are times where we go through what is called a block. You have writer's block, artist block, whatever block it is. This is how you reload. And I use the term based on you erase and continue and move on. So the pencil is very important in my pieces now, and there's a lot of it in it because of that. And I even took it and broke it down into something of a fantasy with Return of the Shaolin pencil, The feel I want the public to have when they look at one of my murals is a breath of fresh air. I want them to see something new every time they look at it. I wanted to bring people together, as a conversation piece. The George Washington mural was actually commissioned by an organization called DC Vote. The concept is that DC doesn't have a voice as far as voting rights and so on. So it's a way to make a statement, and that's one of my top 5 favorites because that's the kind of work I like doing, like work pieces that make a statement that continue. It's new every time you see it, and it's so DC. This piece represents the growth in both my skill set and how I'm handling things now. So the feel, the technique is completely different from what I've done before. This is my maturing. So if you go back to all the other murals I've done before, you can kind of see the growth. This piece, the reason why this is my favorite is because it embodies everything. The illustration is in there. The painting, the contemporary painting style is in there. The street art feel is in there. Everything, it embodies everything pretty much. So yeah, this one is my favorite. The advice I would have for aspiring artists would be narrow your focus, build a skill set, and stay consistent according to the market you're looking for. And sky's the limit.
Here in the studio is Greg Masucci, a DC TV student producer. Thanks for being here today, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
So Greg, what do you think Aniekan Udofia's artwork does for Washington, D.C.?
Well, I think it really reflects the rich cultural, multicultural heritage of D.C., and particularly the fact that he had lived in Nigeria and Africa, and he was born in D.C. but then moved to Africa. Really, I think he brings with him more of the cultural influences of Africa and sort of builds on the tradition that was already here. His artwork is also, he's changing what were once dreary urban landscapes into something, more beautiful. And I think in some ways it reflects the renaissance of DC itself. I think it makes the difference between just a good city and a great city. It gives us the cultural capital to compete with something, cities like New York or Chicago. And I think it really beautifies the city and also makes you smile when you walk by it.
That's really great to hear. Now, if you could request a special mural of anything from Aniekan, what would it be and why?
Well, I really like the Washington mural because it makes a political statement, and there's a political town, of course, and I think right now, our government is awash in money from big corporations, and there was a ruling on Citizens United. I'd love to see him do a mural about money's corrupting influence on politics. I think it would be really great and relevant, and it's a visual message that really bring the point home, maybe to more people.
That would really be interesting to see. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Aniekan Udofia's artwork has captured many minds in the District of Columbia. It's been a pleasure to learn more about the man whose artwork will forever be appreciated in the nation's capital. To view more of Aniekan Udofia's artwork, please visit his Instagram and Facebook pages by searching for Aniekan Reloaded.